Okay, here's another higher brain tool for you to help you stay anchored up above and pull out of the lower brain. And I call this is the concept of get rid of, believe it or not, self-esteem and FOMO, fear of missing out. And this is one that's always a little bit triggering of the lower brain, which really loves for you to have high self-esteem and high rank in society, whether it's for looks or intelligence or money or success or being the fastest on the block, whatever it is that your brain attaches to give it a sense of higher rank, as we've talked about in the past. This is all evolutionary trickery to get you to have higher rank in order to optimize mating success for the genes to get to the next generation. It ain't there for your happiness, I promise you. Okay, so why? Why is it important to get this dopamine system out of the way, the self-esteem dopamine system and the desire for pleasure and opportunity dopamine system, which is fear of missing out? So continuing with the left brain, and this, self-esteem is kind of a combination of biology meets storytelling because the way we define what our worth is based on stories and especially stories that society and our family have, placed in our brain. But again, we can undo these stories in order to not be burdened by self-esteem. I am not religious. I'm not promoting any kind of religion. But in the United States, we're a very biblical Christian nation for the most part. And even Christ is talking about this in the Beatitudes of the Gospel of Matthew, that the meek shall inherit the earth. He's saying, you fools, get your self-esteem out of the way, be meek, be humble. And that's going to give you access to great riches in life. So again, we're focusing on the left part of the brain, left prefrontal cortex, including the orbital prefrontal cortex, storytelling machinery. And the concept is you do not need to feel good. Now, we talked about this in another video, but it's such an important concept. It's to me one of the most important concepts that I hit on in this program. And I want to come at it from lots of different angles. And that is, you do not need to feel good about yourself to be happy. In fact, the opposite is typically true. In other words, the concern for status means you then are afraid of losing status, and then your lower brain will fool you into taking less risk, to be disengaged, to not be self-aware, to not grow as a human, to not take risk in learning, risk in innovation, risk in relationships, risk in having a difficult conversation, leadership risk, happiness risk, spiritual risk. These are all risky. And so your lower brain's always yelling at you, no, 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 don't do it because we're going to look stupid. We're going to be embarrassed. We're going to lose status. We're going to lose access to our group. Our group's going to reject us. What we have is already good enough. It's good enough. We don't want to lose it. And the same thing goes for FOMO, fear of missing out, which is also dopamine driven, which is the desire to have more pleasure and more opportunity, and especially prescribed forms like, oh yeah, it'd be great to retire. Oh yeah, it'd be great to go on vacation. Oh yeah, it'd be great to go to that restaurant. And suddenly we get addicted to that notion that that is good. We tell a story and we attach a dopamine valuation to that. And what I'm going to say to you is that these prescribed forms of happiness, you never need to worry about them or losing out on them. Fear of missing out is a complete manufactured idea from your lower brain. And so, in fact, edge of comfort zone neural network expansion, that's personal growth and awareness, it's learning and innovation, it's leadership and difficult conversations, trust building and psychological safety building and relationships, it's happiness, it's spiritual advancement. You have unlimited access to this always, everywhere you are, no matter what you're doing right now, you have access to that. And so we have to remind ourselves of letting go of FOMO and even self-esteem because they increase our tolerance for commitment and feedback. So this is to make it come alive from a brain science perspective. Everything is a neural network. Here's a neuron. We've talked about this before, but as you expand it, more branches, more branches. So as you become more knowledgeable, as you have better understanding, models of understanding life and your job or your relationship, skills, happiness is a neural network. The ability to self-regulate and shut off the lower brain when it gets activated is a really important neural network because it makes you more and more fearless because you're like, you know what, if I get dysregulated. My lower brain comes on. I look stupid. I get embarrassed. I need help. I need to give somebody credit for helping me. Like all these are dysregulating for the lower brain. But you can expand the neural networks, which you're doing in this program, to be able to re-regulate yourself. And that gives you more confidence. I'll be fine. I have no problem looking stupid, asking for help, etc., being embarrassed, failing. It's all fine. We'll re-regulate. We're back into the fire of creativity. And so every single time you add moment to moment, you add something to your neural network, whether it's knowledge, whether it's understanding, whether it's a skill, whether it's a different perspective on happiness, whether it's re-regulating your lower brain. Every time you do that, you add a branch, 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 you keep expanding. Every time you do that, you produce more dopamine and even more norepinephrine, anandamide, serotonin, GABA, oxytocin with connection. And so there's much greater happiness being on the edge of your comfort zone, expanding into the unknown, expanding on the, into uh, all these categories of neural networks being expanded, releases much more happiness neurotransmitters than just dopamine, and even more dopamine than you get from external validation, external pleasure. It lasts for a little while and then it wears off. It's called arrival fallacy. So the idea that the vacation or the retirement or making a certain amount of money or getting a certain position in your company is going to give you happiness doesn't work. Why? Because, and I'm going to jump forward a little bit, the dopamine system we talked about, after you get that first spike, then the next spike from that, having that money, having that relationship, having that whatever, the lower brain's like, we're bored, we're bored, okay, and so it starts to wear off in its sustainability. And so being on the edge of your comfort zone is something you have access to all the time, everywhere, and leads to all these neurotransmitters, including dopamine, being produced because it's novelty, it's new situations, it's pushing yourself, it's being accelerated, it's making connections, it's building higher brain muscle, which is GABA, and shutting off the lower brain. And so it's really critical to recognize that external sources of happiness pale by comparison to internal sources of happiness with expansion of neural networks. And so finally, what I want you to think about is embrace self-esteem diminishing circumstances to build your higher brain muscle for tolerating the dopamine drop, right? So uh, be okay with embarrassment, be okay with failure, be okay with loss, be okay with someone criticizing you and saying, what did that do to my lower brain? Interesting. My self-esteem system doesn't like that. I wonder why that is. And then again, it doesn't mean you're going to be, a carpet that someone can just roll over you. That's not the point. The point is we're not going to let them activate our lower brain, and then we can hold them accountable for being better in relationship with us. Same thing with, and again, the big point of this is that by virtue of increasing your tolerance for the dopamine drop, that's profound. That's Christ, the meek shall inherit the earth, and the poor of spirit will enter the kingdom of heaven, because you increase your tolerance for commitment. That's a big one. And you increase your tolerance of feedback. That's the second big one. And this leads to an much richer life because you're edge of comfort zone, producing many more happiness neurotransmitters, many more different categories of neurotransmitters of happiness, and much more of them, including much more of dopamine, by virtue of pushing to the edge of your comfort zone in all areas of life. Okay. So practice building the muscle of tolerating a loss of pleasure and opportunity, a loss of self-esteem. Building that muscle will then allow you to be more and more fearless, and your life will become ever more rich in all dimensions. All right. Go out there and practice.